On this week's Gridiron Report, we have Cade Cunningham being named All-NBA, Michigan basketball roster beginning to take form, a snake draft of the Detroit Villains, and we wrap up with some grit of the week, so let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim, from the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Gridiron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire, Gridiron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud, champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the stories are proud.
Welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mich Media. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, and Detroit has finally won an in-season award, albeit just an all-third NBA team for Cade Cunningham, but they finally did it.
Yeah, it's huge, man. I mean, Cade's our guy. He's the face of, one of the faces of Detroit. We're probably going to get into that a little bit later. Just a quick spoiler alert there for the people listening. But yeah, I mean, Cade, third team All NBA, very well deserving. I think you could probably make an argument that he deserves a little bit higher. But I mean, I don't know. We might be splitting hairs here. But yeah, I'm definitely proud of the kid, and I am just looking at the first and second team All NBA. There's only a few guards on there that are higher than Cade. So maybe he is right to be in that third team. But I mean, regardless, man, super proud of him. I think it's a really good look for us and our team to have a guy on the third team. It really just shows that the Pistons are on the up and coming, and we have superstars on our team. And yeah, Cade, he's getting paid more now, right?
Yeah, so a lot to kind of unpack from this. I think all season we were thinking, like, he took the steps we needed him to take. He was a bona fide all-star this year, for sure, making the all-star game. I kind of was thinking he would be in like that second team all NBA, and I'll get into, we have a player A versus player B comparison here in a few minutes just so we can see, because I thought he was going to be on that second team, but he ends up being on the third team. The other third team all NBA players, you had Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Halliburton, who, if you remember, really started the season really slow. Actually, honestly, before the All-Star game, he was kind of in a huge slump. Really, after the All-Star game exploded, and then obviously has just taken over for these playoffs. So Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Halliburton, James Harden, who admittedly I don't watch that much Clippers ball, but I feel like he didn't have that great of a season. I don't know, I guess good enough to make all NBA third team. Karl Anthony Towns, who again I kind of was surprised he wasn't higher on this as well. And then Thunder guard forward Jalen Williams kind of rounds out that third team. So you're right. This, if nothing else, it just has major implications on Detroit's upcoming salary cap. So going into this, I guess as of a few weeks ago, Detroit had a lot of salary cap to play around with. There was kind of a combination of like a few guys we had to extend, a few guys we could re-sign, and we had the flexibility to do that. Now, because Cade was named to an All-NBA team, again, albeit just the third All-NBA team, but still an All-NBA team nonetheless, he is basically due a raise. So how that works is when he signed his contract extension last July, it was worked in there what was called the Rose Rule, which was obviously made after Derrick Rose. It basically said he gets a raise if he was able to win an MVP award, Defensive Player of the Year award, or make any of the three All-NBA teams. So now, instead of making his originally agreed upon $224 million over the next 5 years, that is now raised up to $269 million over the next 5 years. So luckily, I think we kind of for a few weeks figured he was going to be on one of these teams. And so we kind of foresaw this coming, and we can kind of make our plans accordingly. But it definitely hurts our salary cap situation a little bit. But it is good, but it hurts, but it's good, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you put something like that in a player's contract because A, you think he could probably do it, but B, if he does, become an MVP or an All-NBA player, even All-NBA, you're a top 15 player in the league. That means that you have absolutely panned out. And for a number one pick, that's exactly what you want. You want to make, making an All-NBA team. And Cade did exactly that. So yeah, he's going to be making more. That money is going to be spread just a little bit, thin for the rest of the players. But yeah, like you said, we're hoping that the Pistons front office, they were taking that into account well before even this season, just knowing that Cade is the type of player that can make an All-NBA team. So yeah, I mean, I'm certainly happy for the guy. We could talk about MVP voting a little bit too. Cade's 7th in MVP voting. So I mean, that's huge. That speaks volumes, I think, almost just as much as being named to, an all All NBA team is being top 10, fringe top 5 in MVP voting. That's just huge.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is that he was the youngest player on that list by 3 years. So it not only is he right on the edge of like top tier superstar level, he's also still doing it at such a young age, which I think we sometimes forget. But it's a good problem to have. Like you said, to have someone named to the All NBA team, no matter which one it is, it's a great problem to have. The Pistons will gladly take this challenge and figure it out if it means he's on an All NBA team. Like we've mentioned in previous episodes, Michael Blackstone and Trajan Langdon are two of the best front office duos to work around contracts and make the money work. And so when we're kind of breaking down our, most ideal off seasons, the money to me doesn't really affect, anything really, just because those guys are so good. Like they'll find the money and they'll make it work to get the guys that they are able to get. But I do have a gripe. Like I said a few minutes ago, I thought Cade was going to be on the all second team at least. So the all first team was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Let's see who else.
Tatum and Donovan Mitchell.
Tatum and Donovan Mitchell. Yep. So and then the second team was Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, and Evan Mobley. So I have a little player A versus player B action here. You can obviously probably guess one of those is going to be Cade. So player A, I have 70 games in total this season. He had averaged 26, and I'm going to round a little bit just to make it a little more even, 26 points per game this season. He had 5.5 rebounds and 7.5 assists on 51% from 2-point range and 36% from 3-point range. So that's player A, 26, 5, and 7. And then player B, same 70 games sample size. He had 24 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, and 6 assists on 49% from 2 and 39% from 3. So, I mean, you tell me which one do you have in player A or player B?
I mean, I got to go with player A. It's more. He's averaging 2 more points, at least 1.5 rebounds more, and seemed like 1.5 assists more. So yeah, I got to go player A.
The only edge that player B has is what, like 2 or 3% in the 3-point range. And then one kind of stat there that I'm sure did end up hurting Cade in being named to the third instead of the second team was his turnovers. Player B averaged 2.9 turnovers per game. Player A averaged 4.4. So player A is obviously Cade. Player B is Steph Curry. And I think when that came out that Steph Curry made the second team All NBA, a lot of people, not just Pistons fans, were kind of surprised by that, just because like Steph was great. Steph is always great, but his numbers weren't necessarily better than Cade, and especially being a guard. It's not like Cade was going up against, like it was taken from a center or something that you can't really go apples to apples. It's really a guard versus guard, and Cade had the numbers, really.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's not surprising is that Steph Curry's name probably carries a substantial
100%.
amount of weight, more than Cade. I mean, that's no surprise, not a hot take at all. So I think that's why Steph's in there. But yeah, if you just look at the numbers, I would have been totally happy with swapping Cade and Steph there. I mean, I think Cade did have a better season, but that's no knock on Steph. I think Steph is an incredibly talented player, still one of the best guards in the league. So I mean, I do see certainly a case for him being second team All NBA. I mean, he's Steph Curry.
Yeah, for sure. And if he would have been on the third team All the NBA, I'd probably have been like, yeah, that checks out. Without having watched, same as the Clippers. I mean, they're on the West Coast. Without having watched every single Golden State game, Steph's name carries a little bit, like you said, and he's still the Steph Curry. That it can shoot the lights out and take over a game. So I would happily put him at third. And so I was just kind of surprised there. And Cade finishing in seventh in MVP. I thought he was going to finish a little bit higher there as well. But hey, we're not really that complaining. Like we said, Detroit finally won an in-season award. We did an episode a few weeks ago breaking down how Detroit seemingly just continuously falls short of these. We had AJ Hinch coming in third for Manager of the Year. You had Dan Campbell coming in second of Coach of the Year. You had Cade Cunningham, who just fell short of Most Improved Player of the Year. And then obviously seventh in MVP voting. You had Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff both being snubbed. So finally, Detroit wins somewhat of an award, albeit, third NBA team. But I'll take it. It's something we can hang our head on and build from.
Yeah, let's build from it. Let's shoot for second team or maybe even higher next year, Cade.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that first team. That first team's getting pretty old. I don't know. There's some young guns on the second team. Jalen Brunson, obviously, Anthony Edwards, both stars in the league, young stars in the league. But that first team's getting pretty old. I think there's a chance multiple people from second and third team can make their way up there next year.
Yeah, but just looking at the list and just seeing even Cade at third team, is the fifth, sixth best guard in the entire NBA. I mean, I will absolutely take that.
And ethical. You look at Jalen. I mean, I don't want to get into it again, but like he plays the game well. He plays the game so much better than all these other guys that were above him. But I digress. We don't need to get into that again. We already did full episodes on that, and I'm sure everyone is sick and tired of it. Just as a side note, though, I did turn on the Knicks Pacers game a few days ago, and I mean, I swear to God, I had it on for like 2 minutes, and I had to turn it off because Brunson pissed me off, and it was like triggering, and suddenly I was right back into our series, and I couldn't stand it. I had to turn it off.
I still think, just to Brunson's credit a little bit, I think that his foul baiting has definitely decreased since that Pistons series. He's still doing it, but I think he's doing it a little bit less. And then I don't know. I'm watching SGA in the other series, and I think he's far worse. I think it's hard to watch, man.
That's what I was just going to ask. Who do you think was worse? Because I was having a conversation with a buddy of ours, and he was saying SGA was like 10 times worse. And I haven't watched a bunch of Thunder games. I think just because they're in a different conference, I just naturally kind of like them more. And so maybe I'm a little bit biased there. But I thought Brunson was way worse. You think SGA is worse?
Yeah, I mean, not 10 times worse. That's pretty ridiculous. But I think he is definitely worse. He's the king of foul baiting.
At least we have none of them. We have only ethical hoopers on our squad. So yeah, shout out to Cade. It'll get interesting as we get into this offseason, how we kind of go about our free agency. Like I said, I don't see the money being in any way a hindrance for us getting who we want. I really think it's really going to come down to like the guys that we're targeting, and we talked about them. They all still could be brought back by their clubs, and I think that's going to be that kind of like the stopper for the guys we're targeting, not the money. So we'll keep you guys updated on that as we do get more into the offseason. But moving on, we do have more kind of in that same vein. So if you guys listened to, I think it was 2 weeks ago, possibly last week, we broke down Michigan State's likely final portal transfer addition when they went out and got Divine as their backup point guard. We mentioned during that week's episode that we were only going to kind of break down Michigan State and their predictive starting lineup because Michigan still had a lot of question marks, a lot of things up in the air, mostly due to Yaxel Lendeborg being still in the NBA draft. He is a transfer from UAB, transferred to Michigan, but then entered the NBA draft, so then kind of held his eligibility for the a few months as he tested the NBA waters. There was still no word as of that episode whether he was going to be staying in the NBA, coming back to Michigan. So we decided rather than like kind of break that down, we were going to wait until he made his decision and we can kind of go from there. Well, his decision came today. Yaxel has officially withdrew from the NBA draft, so all Michigan fans can absolutely rejoice. As bona fide Sparties, I'm furious because he is legit. He was the consensus #1 transfer portal addition or possible addition in the country this past year. Just breaking him. I think I did a quick breakdown on him a few weeks ago, but real quick, just again, 6'9", 240-pound power forward. Last year with UAB, he averaged 18 points, 11 rebounds per game, had a 2-to-1 assist ratio, so he sees the floor really well, passes the ball really well, and he shot 36% from deep. He's like really just an extremely well-balanced player. He can attack you on closeout, on defensively. He was a 2-time conference defensive player of the year. He was 3rd nationally in rebounds. So to be a UAB and be 3rd nationally in rebounds is impressive. 1st nationally in blocks and then 1st in scoring. He was one of 11 players nationally who averaged a double-double. So like he's the real deal. He can beat you in pick and rolls. He can beat you from the perimeter. He can get into the lane and get to the line. He's the real deal for Michigan. So Michigan really honestly likely just got definitely a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate, if not a National Player of the Year candidate. And so I mean, if you're a Michigan fan, you have to be rejoicing right now.
Yeah, this is huge for them, and yeah, I'm already prepared to hate this guy with a burning passion. But yeah, he's, I mean, objectively just a hell of a player. I mean, you just broke down his stats, so we don't have to do it again. But any guy averaging 18 and 11, he's just such a high motor player. You can see that by the way he plays defense, by the way he rebounds. He kind of just does it all. So he's going to be a real tough one to handle, and especially I'm just thinking about Michigan State's roster and kind of how we might stack up against this Michigan team. Add Lendeborg into the mix, and it's going to be a real uphill battle. I really do think that Michigan is going to be a top 10, fringe top 5 team nationally next year. And really, just looking at the roster, this guy is the limit. Obviously, things can shake out a little bit differently. You never know how a team is going to gel together, especially a team full of a lot of transfers and a lot of new faces. But yeah, I mean, I think we all know that. Year. Yeah. Dusty May is a good coach, and yeah, they're gonna be a force for sure. So this one's definitely a tough scene.
Yeah, so and we broke down the predicted starting 5 for Michigan State. So now because so it was rumored that Yaxel wanted to be a top 20 draft pick, and he kind of was being drafted right around there. I saw anything between like 17 to like 26. So kind of, on the edge, and top 20, I guess, was he really wanted. So that's why he ended up coming back. So looking at their starting five, you're right on the nose there, and that like Dusty is kind of like running back his strategy that worked last year and just like retooling the guys from across the country, really using the transfer portal in a way that, as Spartan fans, Tom Izzo hasn't necessarily really done. Because you look at his starting five, I would even say starting six, because his five position, the center, is likely going to be like one of two guys. I could truly see it go either way. And if it doesn't go with one guy, it's going to go the other, and both are transfers. So you look at their starting 5/6. Three of those guys are going to be new to the program and come in and contribute immediately. So you're likely going to have a starting five of like Elliot Kudo at point guard. He's a transfer from UNC. Namari Burnett, who is going to be back this year. He is a flamethrower, still actually a transfer, just a transfer a few years ago. I think he transferred from Alabama and then Texas Tech, if I'm correct. I think I want to say just a flamethrower. I think he's like a 40% 3-point shooter. So a really good shooter at the 2 guard. Roddy Gale, who now I'm going through all these. Roddy Gale is a transfer as well from Ohio State, I want to say. So another transfer. I don't think out of this starting 5/6, not a single guy was recruited out of high school for them. So Roddy Gale at the 3, who really came on in the tournament for the Wolverines this past year. At the 4, you're going to have Yaxel. We already went through his numbers. He's National Player of the Year contender. And then at the 5, it can go one of two ways. Like I said, you either have Morez Johnson, the transfer from Illinois, who's probably going to be the starter, but he stands at just 6'9". So you'd have your 2 tallest guys being Yaxel and Morez, both standing at 6'9". Or you can go with just the absolute size with Ade Mara, the UCLA transfer, who stands, I think, at 7'3". So you can put Ade in there and get some real size and really beat up on smaller teams, or you can go with the maybe a little bit more offensive-minded Morez Johnson. So that's a really good starting 5. And like you said top 10. I would even say this, with Yaxel coming back, this puts Michigan at top 5 preseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give me a little credit. I did say fringe top 5 as well, but yeah, this is a dangerous lineup, man. It's pretty scary.
So we have that. We have obviously a few more transfer guys that are going to be shaken down over the next few weeks, guys dropping out of the NBA draft across the country. So I don't think anything else is going to come of Michigan or Michigan State. I think pretty much they're going to be set in stone. The only thing that's going to probably come now is going to be figuring out the starting lineups, and we'll get to that as we kind of get into this next fall and into the colder months here. But that's exactly where Michigan is kind of sitting. So it's going to be really interesting. The Wolverines can likely gear up for a good season. And Spartan fans, we're gonna have to pull our bootstraps up and get to work. Let us keep moving. So the next thing, we thought we were going to have some fun. So if you guys recall from a few weeks ago, we did a snake draft of the SC Detroit sports personalities or presence at the moment, talent, if you will. We did a snake draft. I think I won that one. The major slider there was Tarik Skubal. I think you went Riley Green over Tarik, and we'll get into Tarik later in the show because he is absolutely, just crushing it for Detroit. But so we did that a few weeks ago. Going around the internet right now was I think Barstool Detroit put out a poll there, basically asking the same thing. Who is the face of Detroit at the moment? So they had I think they had like 10 different guys. Those results came in. So at number 1, you had Jared Goff, who received 24% of the votes to be the face of Detroit. Second place, you had Dan Campbell, who was just behind him at 23% of the vote. Third place, Tarik Skubal at 18%. Fourth, you had Cade Cunningham. Fifth, Hutch. Sixth, Jameer Gibbs. Seventh, Baez. Eighth, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Ninth, Jamison Williams. 10th was Spencer Torkelson. So real quick, before we get into our spin off this, you agree with these this top 10?
I'm probably putting Dan Campbell 1 just because I feel like everything that he preaches kind of is cascaded down not only to the Lions but to all Detroit sports, and maybe not so much the Red Wings. They played a little bit of soft hockey as of late, but certainly like the Tigers and that grittiness there, and absolutely the Pistons as well. I feel like he is just kind of radiating down to all of these other Detroit teams. So I put DC 1. I'm totally fine with having Jared 1 though. I mean, he's absolutely the face of the Lions and the face of this, rebuild and resurgence. So I think they're almost spot on.
I think the only reason I would disagree with this is because Dan's a little more vocal. I feel like he's more outspoken, and like kind of in the sense that we have, endless quotes of the man talking about Detroit and the grittiness and stuff. So I feel like he almost like speaks for the city more so, and that, in my opinion, would just make him. So I think I agree with you. I think Dan is number 1, and then I'm just such a homer, and I think Cade needs to be up there, and Cade needs to be too. But I can't argue any other way. I think it kind of plays out perfectly. I'm kind of surprised Javi Baez comes in at 7 over, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is ride or die with the Honolulu Blue, or,
Yeah. You got some
I guess,
recency bias there. Yeah, if you put this poll out in mid-November instead, and the Lions are on a heater, I guarantee St. Brown's higher on that list.
or if you would have put it out, 2.5 months ago, Javi Baez would have been like 9th on the list.
I think Javi probably would have been on the list that we're going to be doing right
Oh.
now, Detroit sports villain. So a little teaser there, but I'll let you introduce it, man.
Wow, what a bridge there. Yeah, so we did this, like I said, we already did our face of the franchise, or face of the cities, who we're going to see, the most must-watch Detroit sports people. So we're going to do a little twist on this, and we are going to do a snake draft of the Detroit villains that one reason or another have actually tormented us for years. So kind of the opposite. And Kyle, as we were going through this and I was putting my list together, I realized it's kind of a depressing list, just going through the amount of these guys and how they've tortured us for years and years. But I thought it was interesting. So before we do that, or actually before this episode, Kyle and I did pick numbers. I got the first overall pick. So if you're keeping score at home, this is our second snake draft. I am 2 for 2, getting the first overall draft pick. I will start us off here with my first overall draft pick of the villains of Detroit. I think this is a clear 1-1. I know you mentioned you weren't sure who your 1-1 is going to be. I don't know if I necessarily think this guy is my number 1, but I think you think Detroit villains, you think Claude Lemieux.
Yeah. He was very high on my list as well. I don't know if I would have taken him 1-1. I was telling you before the show started, and I'm glad I don't have the number 1 pick. But yeah, I think that's a great one. And I'm just thinking towards the infamous hit on Chris Draper, the dirty hit, basically broke his entire face and ignited an entire rivalry that ultimately boiled over to the fight night at the Joe. So I think it's a great pick, man.
Yeah, it was truly one of the, in my opinion, one of the best hockey games of all time. Hockey players have long memories. That was a whole year, a year prior that Claude Lemieux basically, like you said, shattered Draper's face and hitting him into the boards. And then we take him out in the playoffs, and immediately, as soon as that puck dropped, we went and beat the shit out of him, and he turtled, and it, like you said, ignited such a long rivalry between the Red Wings and the Avalanche. So he's my number 1-1. I thought it's got to be him.
I like the pick. Yeah, I'm not sure if I would have taken him 1 if I would have had it, but it certainly would have been up there. So, and he was definitely on my list. So I guess first pick for me, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to go with a guy. I don't know if he's so much of a villain. He is certainly a killer of the Lions. In my mind, he's a villain. He's a guy who just absolutely murdered us my entire childhood. I was very happy to see him finally leave the Packers, and that's going to be Aaron Rodgers. And I think probably the nail in the coffin for Rodgers becoming just that villain, that lion killer. The Hail Mary on Thursday Night Football in a December evening in 2015, where the Packers had actually trailed by 20 in that game, and Rodgers led them all the way back, and heaved up a 61-yard Hail Mary as time expired for the win, and just really broke my back. Way back in 2015, and seemingly Rodgers did it, time and time again. So I think he's a huge Detroit sports villain. He's a lion killer. Was happy to see him leave. Happy to see him kind of, be shit now, even though he's an absolute legend. But he's my first pick.
Yeah, he was definitely on my list. He was a little bit further down because he has an 18-8 record against Detroit all time, which is insane. You're right. He did own us for the majority of our childhood watching it as the Lion. Everyone owned the Lions, so we were terrible. But the reason that he was further down on my list, maybe it's recency bias, because like you said, he kind of has become shit over the last few years, and Detroit has inversely gotten really good. And we were the guys that kind of kicked him out of Green Bay. And so maybe that played into my mind a little bit, that like, I'm not that afraid of him anymore because we were able to take him down. And then also, I don't know if I'm way off base on this. I feel like Rodgers hates the Bears more than the Packers. Do you get that feeling? Or excuse me, Rodgers hates the Bears more than the Lions.
Yeah, and he might hate the Packers a little bit too,
right.
but he hates everyone, so it's he's an equal opportunity hater. But yes, I think he does hate the Bears quite a bit too.
Like him saying, he still owns Chicago and stuff. It kind of just like, if he would do that shit to us, he would have been much higher on my list. But it's a great pick. I mean, he had to fall on one of our lists because he murdered us for so many years.
Yeah, and I hate him. So I'm going Rodgers 1 and snake draft. I get another pick here. I mean, I'm just looking over at my list, and like all these guys are huge Detroit sports villains, killers, however you want to say it. This guy, I think that he almost single-handedly brought down the going to work Pistons. He's an incredible player. He's still playing at an extremely high rate right now. One of, if not the best to ever do it. I'm going with LeBron at 2. Like I said, yeah, I think he basically ended the going to work Pistons era by completely shitting on us multiple times in big playoff series. I'm thinking of the 25 straight points that he dropped in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I mean, you have a guy who drops 25 straight on your head, and he did it when he was like, what, 20 years old, maybe. So yeah, I'm going with LeBron for my second pick. I think he was just an absolute Pistons killer. He has been, I think, his entire career. We've kind of been through different stages as the Pistons. We were good, we were really shit, now we're good again. It seems like LeBron just, he ages like fine wine. And he's been a villain for us for seemingly forever, but especially early on in his career in the Cavs.
Dude, I completely forgot about like his 20 plus straight points against us.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me. I think it's hard for me to conceptualize because that was literally like 3 LeBron lifetimes ago. Like that was obviously before the Laker time. It was before the Cavaliers the second time. It was before the Heat. It was back all the way Cavaliers the first time. You're right. He truly, like, we would get to the semis every single year and we just couldn't get past LeBron James. He's 42 and 23 in regular season games against us. And then 15 and 6 in playoff games. And against the Pistons, in his 65 games, he averages 24 points per game. In his 21 playoff games against us, he averages 26.6 points per game. So he gets better against the Pistons in the playoffs to almost the tune of 30 points a game. That's a great pick because he truly did. And not only did he end the going to work Pistons, he sent us into such dark times.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, where are you going now, though? You got 2 picks.
Yeah, that's a great, and I'm glad you took over there because as soon as you said your Rodgers pick, you probably could even heard me on the mic. I was like seconds away from giving my pick. I got caught in the draft and forgot that you had 2 picks back to back. So now I do. So really great. So you went with some Detroit sports teams killers. I went with kind of the hated guy. I'm going to stick with the hated guy here, and I'm going to go with a recent Detroit villain added to this list, and that's Monty Williams. And I think I want to be careful what I say here because I know Monty Williams kind of was put in a real difficult situation. He didn't want the job. He got kind of scapegoated a little bit when he was with the Phoenix Suns. He got scapegoated. He had said after he was fired, probably unfairly, that he's like, I'm done coaching for a while. I think his wife had cancer, so he was like, I'm done coaching. I'm gonna go enjoy my time with her, go through her treatments, ride away in the sunset. And then Tom Gores came calling, asked him to be our head coach. He said no. Tom Gores said, well, how about this blank check? He said yes. And so that's all fine. Like, I get that. What put him on my villains list was the way that he coached last year. I have said multiple times on this podcast, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I think it's fun to think about those things, but like, no one's trying to lose. No one's trying to rig things, in my opinion. Last season was the first time I ever had the actual thought of like, I think this guy's trying to lose. I think he is trying to basically get fired, like collect his check and be like, you won't fire me and give me the $70 million you owe me and let me not coach. I truly think he was trying to lose by the amount of games he started Killian Hayes, by the amount of times he started James Wiseman. Like the rosters and the minutes, none of it made sense. And I truly think he was trying to lose. And he set this, who knows, and I don't know, maybe if we didn't go through that, the losing streak, we wouldn't have been where we were this year. But like, who knows if we had one more year of like a year earlier of great rotations and learning and stuff. And, maybe if he doesn't do that, we don't get Trajan Langdon. So there's a lot of what ifs. But like, he was so frustrating last year watching game after game after game. And I truly think he was trying to get fired and just collect his check and get out the door.
Yeah, I absolutely hate the guy. I'm totally with you. Like he almost taught them, like, I don't know, negative defense. Like the team just couldn't even guard a pick and roll, which is one of the the most basic and probably something that you're taught when you're like 7 years old. So yeah, it was insane how bad he was as a coach.
And you can look at some of the numbers we had this year of like the 3-point shooting. We were the last in the league in 3-point shooting last year. And now Trajan Langdon went out this year, got some really good veteran shooting, and we were good this year. But you're right, defensive the guys we got aren't defensive guys. Like Dennis Schroeder is okay. Tobias Harris is okay. Malik Beasley is not a defensive guy. He's a defensive liability. So like the defense going from worst in the league to top 5 in the league was truly just on coaching. And so he's recent, but he's got to be on my list there. So for me, I have my 4th pick, and then we'll get back to you, and then we'll have some honorable mentions because I have a number of these guys. So I went kind of guys Detroit should hate back to back. I'm going to go with this next guy is one that I don't necessarily know if all Detroit remembers it as well as I do, but I'm going to say Pablo Sandoval. Pablo Sandoval, game one of the 2012 World Series against the San Francisco Giants. If you recall, that was the season in which we swept, I think, the Yankees the series before. The Giants had really struggled in their NLDS games, or the NLCS or whatever it was. And then it was kind of rest versus rust. Pablo Sandoval, out of nowhere, the big panda, whatever they called him, 3 for 3 with 3 home runs, 2 of them against Justin Verlander, one of the best pitchers of all time. And in game one, just like set the tone for the entire rest of the World Series. And in my opinion, like won the World Series in that game one. The Tigers ended up being swept by the Giants in 2012 for one of our best World Series opportunities. I just can never get over the back-to-back home runs to end that season.
Yeah, that was just backbreaking. And I don't even know if he was having like that good of a season, but he just seemed to turn it on when it mattered most in those playoffs. And yeah, it just went yard after yard. And yeah, I think Tigers got swept in that series. Like it was a tough scene.
All right, I'm lost in the draft. Is it your pick or my pick?
Dude, I was just about to ask you, how many have you picked? I've only picked 2, so
I had Claude Lemieux, Monty Williams, and Pablo Sandoval. So you go. Yeah,
I got 2 picks. Right? And then you're up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. This should not be that hard. I'm sorry. Don't cut this either. Let's keep this in. Yeah. All right. Third pick. All right. So I picked two guys that are very much seen as Detroit sports killers. This one I'm gonna zig a little bit. This guy, not a player. At least I don't. If he did play, I don't know of it. This guy is infamous though. He's gonna go down as probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Detroit sports villains, and that is not what he did playing, but rather what he did as an official, and that is Jim Joyce. So Jim Joyce, I mean, if you say this name, anyone who's ever been a Tigers fan knows exactly who this is. But he was, infamously, well, I guess he's famous for calling the base runner safe on what would have been the 27th out. 27th and final out in Armando Galarraga's perfect game effort. That runner, by the way, was out by at least half a step. This was before video replay. This was in the late 2000s or the late 2010s, somewhere around there. Did not have video replay, and yeah, it was probably a play where Miguel Cabrera should have just stayed near first base and let whoever's playing second base just get this ground ball. But neither here nor there. Galarraga fielded his position great, ran to first base, and yeah, they got the guy out. He was called safe by Jim Joyce. Later, Jim Joyce would say, "Yep, this was absolutely the wrong call. I blew it. He thought he was safe." I don't know how you botch the 27th out like that in a perfect game. Everyone, I mean, if you don't know, a perfect game is one of the most rare occasions, not only in baseball, but in all of sports. I think there's only been maybe 20, 25 perfect games in the history of the MLB. So this absolutely would have gone down in the record books as one of the best outings that anyone has ever done, because it's a perfect game. And Jim Joyce, you took that away from Armando Galarraga, and the MLB has still never, retroactively given Galarraga this perfect game, even though you can see it clear as day on replay. And if this would have happened in today's baseball, it would have been a perfect game. But yeah, he's definitely a villain for me. So it's got to be Jim Joyce.
I thought maybe Galarraga had like an asterisk next to the record book. Is that not a thing? I thought it was like he was in there, but it had an asterisk. They didn't do that.
I don't think so. No. If you look at the perfect games thrown in MLB history, I don't think Galarraga is anywhere on there.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be Villains of Detroit snake draft without Jim Joyce. Like, one of us had to put him on there. I'm glad you did, because I wasn't going to, just simply because he made one of the worst calls in MLB history, definitely in Detroit sports history. But I just have a hard, like, as soon as you do it, there's so much anger in that moment for that man for making that mistake, and then these things start to come out about him and how that call basically ruined his life, and like he was just a man who was living at home with his mom, and he didn't really work after that, and then just, was in tears admitting his mistake that he did, and felt so bad for Armando Galarraga that it's hard for me to put him on like the Mount Rushmore of villains, but you can't tell the story of Detroit villains without having him, because it was that big of a mistake. And I know Armando Galarraga, I think the MLB or Miguel Cabrera, somebody gifted him a Corvette. So like he got, and I mean, he's making, I don't know how much money he was making then. He's obviously was not a household name, kind of was out of nowhere. So maybe a Corvette meant a lot to him. Maybe he already had enough money and the Corvette meant shit. He just wanted the record. But yeah, I mean, it's just extra terrible because in today's day and age, like that would be reviewed and overturned, and it still would have probably taken a little bit of the juice out of like that final out, everyone jumping and screaming and celebrating because you'd have to wait for the review, but still it would have been overturned and he would be in the record book as having one of the best outings a pitcher can have in MLB history. So I'm glad you put him on there, just because you can't tell the story of Detroit villains without him.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, I do have one more pick, and I'm really torn here. I do have quite a few guys that I could go with. Keep it in house. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep this one in house. This was actually a player who donned the Honolulu blue. It was actually drafted by the Lions. I'm going to go with Nadasu, who is known as one of the dirtiest players in the NFL. At least he was. He's retired now. I think he probably hasn't played in a couple of years. But when he was with the Lions, he was certainly known as one of, if not the dirtiest player in the NFL. Known, the Sioux Stomp was infamous as well. I can't remember which play. Was it Rodgers that he stomped on? I can't even remember now. But if it was Rodgers, maybe I'll let that one slide. But yeah, I mean, Sue, just when you think about villains, he's got to be on there just for the way that he played the game. He really spent time with, Miami, with Tampa after the Lions, and it seemingly got less dirty as time went on. But, those years that he spent with the Lions, and of course he was, a very high draft pick. I think we took him, 2 overall?
I think so.
Yeah, and so I think I had to have at least one homegrown guy on this list. I do think that when you think about Detroit sports villains, even though he played for us, he was certainly a villain.
Yeah, it's definitely a different way to look at it because he was kind of a villain for us for those years. Like you said, I don't know if he necessarily got cleaner or like less dirty as the years went on, or if he just like kind of was less good and less in the limelight because he was dominant. I mean, top defensive lineman in the NFL for years. I mean, he was with Detroit for 5 years, 78 games total. He had an interception for 20 yards. I didn't know that. Just looking at his stats here. He had 36 sacks when he was here in Detroit over those 5 years. So he last played in 2022 with Philly, but then each year, I think he's like a common. He, at least for a few years after that 2022 with Philly, he was a real common guy. Like as the trade deadline is approaching, and teams are like kind of gearing up for the playoffs. He's a name that gets thrown around like, oh, what's Sue doing? Maybe you can call him up, get him on like a third down rotation, just get him into wreak havoc and cause chaos. He definitely was a villain. I liked him on Detroit, although I was kind of I guess. I don't know how I felt about him when he was on Detroit because you're right, he was a villain, but he was nasty. He was so good. Apparently, he was a villain in college too when he was playing for the Cornhuskers in Nebraska.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you got one more.
Pick. Yep, I got one more. I got one more, and then we'll do some honorary mentions because I have so many after this one. And I think I'm going to. I already did Pablo Sandoval, baseball, a Tiger killer. I'm gonna. You zigged a little bit with Sue playing for us. I'm gonna zag a little bit too, and say that this guy is only gonna be villains for likely half the state, maybe not even half. Some of the states definitely gonna love this guy, and I'm gonna say Mike Hart. I think Mike Hart was a villain for half the state, all Michigan State fans, the way he, arrogantly went out and coined the phrase "little brother" after, his obviously he's the running back for Michigan, and truly sparked what I think a lot of state fans would consider like some actually good times with D'Antonio, taking that underdog mentality, but always being put down and being referred to as a little brother that truly has never kind of left. And it's evolved now. Michigan State calls Michigan little sister, and I think that's not very creative and stuff, but I digress. But I think Mike Hart was absolutely a villain and still is a huge villain for at least half the state here in Michigan.
Yeah, for sure. That'll go down in the history books. Maybe not nationally, but certainly for this Michigan State football rivalry. Everyone knows, about the little brother speech. I think the funny part is after that, I guess not really a speech, it's more of an interview, a post-game interview. But after he said that, Michigan State ripped off, tons of wins in, those late 2000s up until, probably about 2017, 2018. And they really did own Michigan. And now we've seen the pendulum swing, and Michigan has ripped off, I think, 3 straight. So certainly they seem to have the advantage now. But yeah, it's the little brother speech. I mean, that's going to go down in history.
And the way D'Antonio, I don't think, just a shout out for Mark D'Antonio, because I don't think every coach would have handled it as gracefully and like used it as such fuel as he did. Like we said, he fueled damn near a decade of dominance. And yeah, Mike Hart went on to play 3 seasons in the NFL with the Colts, primarily as a backup role, scored 2 touchdowns in 21 games. So not much of a career there for Big Brother, but yeah, he was able to get us a pretty good decade.
What did Mark D'Antonio famously say? Pride comes before the fall. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so that is my last Detroit villain. So my overall list was Claude Lemieux, Monty Williams, Pablo Sandoval, and Mike Hart. And what was yours?
Yep, I went Aaron Rodgers, then LeBron James, Jim Joyce, and then jeez, I can't say his name, dude. I literally cannot say his name. Ndamukong Suh at the 4. I should change it now because I can't even say the guy's name, so he can't be that much of a villain.
After last week's episode, we need to really sit down and start working on our pronunciations. And we'll get to the Tigers in a few minutes, but
podcasting is hard, folks. Okay,
it's more difficult than you think. So we'll put this out on Instagram, and we'll put a poll on it. So let us know, because I think we're like you said, we're in agreement. I won the first snake draft, so you can go back and take a listen to that one. Let's see who wins this one. If I can go 2-0, if Kyle evens the score there 1-1, we'll put the poll out on Instagram, and we'll figure out who has the better list of Detroit sports villains. A few of my honorable mentions. I have Fat Matt Patricia. I thought you were going to go with him after I went, I think when you were going with Sue, I thought you were going to go Matt Patricia, just because he was so hated here in Detroit. He tried so hard to bring that Patriots way to Detroit, and it only works in New England, but then also he just, like, on top of it being a Patriots way, was just a flat out asshole to so many players and ran so much talent out of town, that it was a real dark time for Detroit sports and the Lions. So he was on my honorable mentions. Let's see. I had Big Papi on my honorable mentions too. Similar to Sandoval.
Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam, Game 2 of the 2013 ALCS. Tigers were up 5-1, bottom of the 8th. Scherzer had a no-no going into the 6th, so we had that game all but locked up. The Red Sox loaded the bases. Ortiz hit a tying Grand Slam. Famously, Torio Hunter goes flying over the wall trying to get the ball. And then I think Jared Saltalamacchia, who at the time was a future Tiger, ended up hitting a single in the 9th to walk it off, and kind of wrapped up that series as well. So he was on my list. Sidney Crosby. I think I don't have any stats for Sidney in front of me. I just remember hating him as a child and ruining so many Red Wings playoff opportunities. So he was on my list.
Yep. I like it. I like all of those. You had Claude Lemieux, which he was very high on my list. Patrick Waugh, also very high on the list. Goalie, I think, very arrogant player as well. Seems like he was always right in the middle of those, Wings Avalanche brawls. So yeah, he was definitely honorable mention for me. I had this guy's just a Tiger killer. I almost picked him instead of Sue. I kind of wish I did. Joe Mauer, murdered us every time that he played the Tigers. I have his career stats against Detroit up. He in 216 games against Detroit, he bat .305, 246 hits, 18 homers, and 122 RBIs in those 216 games. So just absolute Tiger killer.
Just walk a guy, for God's sake.
Yeah, insane. He's a catcher too, and the dude absolutely raked. Just a tremendous athlete. And then I guess last guy I had on my list, Kevin Garnett. Just another villain, very, that cocky attitude, always talking shit. And really, when you think about it, I did mention that LeBron kind of ended that going to work Pistons era. But really, it was Kevin Garnett as well, and the Celtics big three, who ended up, really, the Pistons' last, true title window really did end in 2008 when they, made the playoffs and got bounced by the Celtics there in that big three. So I did have KG on the list as well.
Yeah, those are great guys. I'm sure, like I said, my list is so extensive. I'm sure we left off a few guys, especially like you mentioned with Joe Mauer, like guys that we don't even realize just absolutely killed us, for years and years and years. So if anyone listening to this, if you have one that we didn't think of or haven't mentioned, call in the voicemail for next week and let us know the guys that we missed. We'll play it and have a quick discussion on it. Like I said, it kind of was a depressing list putting it together because it was just guys that have either destroyed us for years and years or guys that left our franchises in shambles. So I promise the next snake draft or Mount Rushmore, whatever have you, we do will be like the happiest Detroit sports moments in history or something like that. We'll do something really, really happy on the next one, I promise.
Cool.
All right, so let's start to wrap up the show. We have the grit of the week. If you notice, there is or was quite a large portion of Detroit sports from this past week that we deliberately left out. We thought it'd be best to kind of wrap up with this part, kind of wrapping it into grit of the week. So for grit of the week this week, Kyle, you and I had no other place to go with this one. We've gotten creative over the last few weeks of who we wanted to give grit of the week to. I think I got really creative a few weeks ago, but there was no kind of working around this one. There was no trying to see like what kind of guy obscurely deserves it. Grit of the week from both Kyle and I has to be Tarik Skubal. Tarik Skubal put together one of the best performances you will see this year in the MLB, if not over the course of multiple years.
Yeah. Scoobs, he was insane on what was it, Sunday, game 4 against the Indians in a must-win game because they had just dropped the previous three to, sorry, I should say the Guardians. And Tarik Skubal, he throws what is called the best Maddox in MLB history. And for anyone who doesn't know, and I actually had to kind of brush up on this too when I saw it on social media, but to throw a Maddox, it's named after Greg Maddox, of course, and it really just denotes a complete game shutout with fewer than 100 pitches. It's coined after Maddox because he was just elite with his efficiency, and he had so many complete games where he threw under 100 pitches. It's extremely hard to do, and yet Skubal made it seem so easy on Sunday. 9 innings, of course, 2 hits, 13 strikeouts, 0 walks on just 94 pitches, and really just to cap it off, the last strikeout against Cleveland, he was clocked at nearly 103 miles per hour, which is the hardest thrown ball by a starting pitcher in the 9th inning since Justin Verlander in 2009. So another Tiger there, another Tiger legend, and one of my favorite players. Shout out JV. But Skubal, just elite, and he's showing it day in and day out.
Speaking of all the killers and Tigers killers and Detroit killers, the Guardians, are absolute Tiger killers. Obviously, they, like you said, they were already up on us 2-0 in the series for this year. They kicked us out of the playoffs last year. Lane Thomas, who he himself took Skubal a yard. And if you recall back to last year in the playoffs, Scooby was on an insane run. I think he had like 18 scoreless innings pitched throughout the playoffs last year. Like he was on equally insane. Like this insane run this year goes back to last year. And then Lane Thomas kind of put an end to it for the Guardians. He hit a either grand slam or like a 3-run bomb to basically eliminate the Tigers from the playoffs. And so you better believe Skubal took it personally. He's definitely the type of pitcher to take things like that personally and think about it. And he was absolutely fantastic. So you went through all of his numbers. I've never seen a guy finish a game on almost 103, like the last pitch on a complete game shutout being 103 miles an hour is insane. You think like as you get into the game, you got to start working on your command because you're starting to lose your velo a little bit. And Tarik just kind of reached back and got 103, and it was so awesome because it was a random like 11:30 a.m. start, which was interesting here in Detroit. So you kind of woke up and threw it on, but the stadium was packed right before that final pitch. Tarik had to call Dylan Dingler to the pitching mound.
Nice.
I got it. Because he has having pitch comm issues. He couldn't hear the pitch that Dylan Dingler was trying to call because the fans were so loud. And just a random 11 a.m. start on Sunday. Like, so shout out to the fans. Shout out to Tarik Skubal. I believe that was his first complete game that he's ever had in his MLB career.
Yes.
And I just love AJ Hinch after the Tarik Skubal quote, or Tarik Skubal complete game was quoted saying, "We're careful across the industry in how we handle guys. The pitch counts and the innings totals have definitely diminished. Sometimes it's your big boy's day and you just got to leave him out there." And like, if I don't know what would have even happened if AJ would have tried to take Scooby out of the game there. I think Scooby would have like screamed at him because there was no pulling him out of that game. It was so impressive. Like I said, it's definitely one of the most impressive outings for a pitcher that you'll see this season, if not, last year within, a few years around here. So,
Yeah.
more on the Tigers. Right now, they're 35-20 with a 5-game lead over the Guardians and the Twins in the Central, even with dropping, what we said, 3 out of 4 to Cleveland. And then on top of it, they just beat the Giants yesterday and the Guardians, Twins, and White Sox, even though the poor White Sox, and Royals too, even though the poor White Sox don't really matter, all lost yesterday. So we were able to get a win, get a little bit more space between us in those games because if you look at the standings, the AL Central is really good.
Yeah, the Central is fantastic. So yeah, to finally pick up that win against Cleveland, every other team in the division losing, that's huge. As we speak right now, recording on Tuesday night, the Tigs are up 1-0 already. Jumped up to a quick 1-0 lead against the Giants. Of course, won last night as well. So yeah, just a big series here. Gotta stack up series wins, especially coming off a series loss. You gotta just take it one game at a time. So playing a really good team in the San Francisco Giants. So good to see that they are already up 1-0. I think it was a 2-out RBI double for Miley Green. So Green continues to stay hot. There's a reason why I chose him as a must-see athlete in Detroit sports currently.
Over Scooby.
He's special. He's special, man. People forget I did pick him over Skubal. But yeah, just going back to Skubal just one last time because I think we just can't speak enough about the guy. Obviously, he's won, I don't even know how many grid of the weeks at this point, but a consensus grid of the week this week. I mean, what a great moment. You touched on it, but I just want to touch on it again. Just the crowd, Comerica Park. Skubal throws that 103 mile per hour fastball, and then you can just see him kind of just looking up, just soaking it all in. And then obviously, Dingler, finally makes his way up to him. They dap up. They start the celebration, but for a good 3-4 seconds, it's just Skubal. It's the crowd, and he's just basking in his glory. And he's an absolute hoss. So that's probably the last thing that I'll say. But it's awesome, man. And I just love Tarik Skubal. And I can't wait to throw him $350 million this offseason. Give him whatever he wants, man.
Dude, I'm not quite done talking about it. I know you were wrapping up there. I'm not quite done talking about it because, after the game, he was talking to Benetti, and shout out Jason Benetti. He is so good. I love Jason Benetti. He's so good on the call, especially of that one. But he was talking to Benetti, I think yesterday or the day before about that. And he said he was just standing there and he had almost tears in his eyes just from the crowd chanting his name. He's like, I never would have thought this was possible, being the best pitcher in the entire world. And you just mentioned how much we're going to pay him. And you and I were talking earlier, like the 1-year deal that we thought like, well, we'll try and figure this out throughout the year is going to end up costing them so much money. He is easily, I don't know how much he's going to get paid. Is he going to be the first $350 million pitcher? Like, I don't know what he's going to get. He's a Scott Boras client, and Scott Boras, obviously one of the largest most powerhouse agents in the MLB. He likes to get his players money. So I don't know how much it's going to cost. I don't think it really matters. I think you pay the man whatever he wants and more.
Yeah, I think you pay him for a couple of reasons. One, because he is so prolific, and you can't just let a pitcher like this get away from you, especially a guy where you drafted. What did they draft him in, like the 11th, 12th round, whatever it was. But two, this Tigers payroll is not even top 15. I don't think. Maybe they're right around 15th in the league. So they're not exactly throwing around money right now. So I mean, you got money to throw. Chris Ilitch, he has been, say what you want about Chris Ilitch. He doesn't love spending money, it seems like, but I think in this case, you absolutely have to. But yeah, I do think that, I mean, I don't know what he's going to get, but I know that this cost the team at least, 50, 60, 70 million more than what they could have probably locked him up for last year. So again, it was a head scratcher at the time. I think we were all saying at the time, like, just sign him. We know how good he is. He just won the Triple Crown, and he's only going to get better, and it's only going to cost you more. And we're seeing that right now. But whatever he wants, I think you give it to Skubal because he is that good. He's must-see television.
And he's a Spartan fan. He's a fan of Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans. So you got to pay the man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
couple more things. Just wrapping up the Tigers real quick. Matt Vierling, he is unfortunately back on the IL with shoulder soreness. So that same shoulder that saw him on the IL for the first basically 2 months of the season, month and a half of the season. He is back there now. So I don't know how serious it is, but just a re-aggravated injury like that is never good. However, the guy that we did just activate, Wenzel Perez, so he was on the IL for I don't know. I think most of the season too. This is his first game. I don't know if it is,
yes,
but
it is.
Starting in center field tonight. Yeah, it is his first game, and he just homered. So
did he?
Yeah, big time solo homer. But great to see from the kid. I think he's a young guy. He's like 24 years old. So hopefully he's back for good from that injury. And yep, just homered in his first game back. So there we go.
I love that. I was just pulling up his stats from last year, and you said he homered. So last year he had a batting average of 242, a WAR of 0.7, 9 home runs in 112 games. So good to see that he's going. We're going to need him. We're going to get real creative with how we're moving people around with Vierling going back down. That's unfortunate, but hopefully it's like Casey Mize, where it was a re-aggravated injury and then kind of a 2-week shutdown and then can be back at it, because Detroit, after playing the Giants for today and tomorrow, they then open a 3-game series against the Royals, a 4-game series against the White Sox. So that's 7 games, winnable 7 games to really blow this wide open, and then go up against a red-hot Chicago Cubs team. So hopefully they can get some momentum going into that one. So yeah, can't say enough about this team. Can't say enough about Scooby. He is both of our grit of the weeks. And I think if I got some time this week, I think we should go back, or maybe one of the listeners can do it, and figure out who has gotten grit of the weeks and how many. Because you're right, Scooby has to be up there with the most grit of the weeks out of anyone, and he's been insane.
Yeah. And yeah, maybe he's the face of Detroit because he's won the most grit of the weeks. I don't know, but
some could argue.
We love the guy. Yeah, you can't argue with the grit of the week. I mean, try to. You just can't.
Nope. And I think actually on that note, I also will dig up our first snake draft and republish that on Instagram so the fans can see it and see which team he ended up on. But
nice, just really victory lap that one, man. Yeah,
I'm going to continue. Okay, so that is it for our show. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. You can find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle_Marino. You can find me on Twitter at Dutton_Tyler, and my writing at both Piston Powered and Champaign Athletics. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram at Gridiron Report, on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1, and then you can watch us on YouTube at Gridiron Report. We'll be putting the results from our snake draft onto Instagram, so you guys can go on the poll and let us know who won. Finally, you can join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That number is 313-306-7939. And if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars. Leave us a review saying so, and then go follow us on all forms of social media. We have a lot of exciting things coming to our show, to Mic Drop Media in general. We have a lot of breaking news to come over the next few weeks. Can't wait to share that with you guys, so stay tuned. Again, follow us on all forms of social to stay up to date on all that stuff. And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, y'all. Go Tigers. Restore that roar.
A journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retired, grit iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on, blast beats thundering loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make your fandom a vow. Make your fandom a vow.